Welcome, and thank you for coming to the forum for the Republican candidates for the Kent County Commissioner. The League of Women Voters envisions a democracy where every single person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. And we work hard to assist citizens to become educated, active, and involved in public policy decisions, as well as the election process. We congratulate and thank all the candidates here today for their willingness to take part in our democracy. We appreciate the time and energy they have expended to work for the betterment of our community. The Kent County League has been active since 1976. We're proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on the vital issues of concern to our members and the public. And now I'd like to introduce to you our moderator, Lynn Dollinger.
Welcome to all of you here tonight via Zoom, including, of course, our Republican candidates for Kent County Commissioner. My name is Lynn Dollinger, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's forum. Here's the format for the evening. After I introduce the candidates alphabetically, they will each have 2 minutes for introductory remarks. Then we'll ask 2 questions, which the candidates have received prior to the event this evening. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. The question order will be rotated with each question. Timers on the screen will alert candidates to time remaining. Then we'll open the floor to audience questions, which can be submitted via the Zoom window. You click on the Q&A button on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, where you should see the Submit a Question prompt. These questions may be addressed to 1, 2, or all of the candidates. We'll address as many additional questions as time allows. Again, the candidates will have 2 minutes each to answer the question, so that we can conclude by 8:30. At approximately 8:20, or when questions are completed, we will give the candidates 2 minutes for closing remarks. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Republican candidates for Kent County Commissioner. Again, in alphabetical order: Ron Fithian, Bob Jacob, Tom Mason, Albert Nicholson, and John Price. Let's get started with introductions by the candidates. Again, in alphabetical order. First, we will introduce Ron Fithian and give him 2 minutes for introductory remarks.
Well, thank you. Let me first of all thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum tonight and giving us an opportunity to address the public and our constituents. And I wish the other 4 candidates well and good luck to them. I'm a native of Rock Hall. I've served this community for over 24 years. I'm proud to say I'm a father to a son, 3 daughters, and 9 grandchildren. The oldest having just graduated from Kent County High School and the youngest beginning pre-K this fall. In 1994, I was elected Kent County Commissioner, and in 1997, I left the seafood industry to serve as the town manager for Rock Hall. For the next 21 years, I balanced both positions, enthusiastic about seeing the town and Kent County thrive. My approach has been and will continue to be comprehensive as I take into account how agriculture, education, environment, and economics are impacted by decisions we make. In 2020, Governor Hogan honored me with the title of Chesapeake Bay Ambassador for my work with the Clean Chesapeake Coalition and my commitment to preserving and maintaining one of the area's most valuable resources, the Chesapeake Bay. My involvement in several county projects and my experience with town and county government and my many contacts within various branches of Maryland state government, I'm a well-rounded candidate fully prepared to govern Kent County in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Now I'd like to give Mr. Jacob an opportunity to do introductory remarks.
Hello, my name is Bob Jacob and I am the current county commissioner. I was born and raised in Rock Hall. I have 2 kids and have been married for 26 years. My employment has included waterman, carpenter, machinist, mechanical design engineer, and currently I'm the owner operator of a job shop machine shop for 20 plus years. We have 23 employees and are located in about a 12,000 square foot building on Mary Morse Road. I started the business in my garage as a cottage industry. I believe in investing and giving back to the community. On the local level, I spent 5 years on the Economic Development Board. 9 years ago, I realized how important it was to create a good tax base for the county, which is one of the reasons I ran. When I'm not working, doing county business or fishing, I am a member of the Sons of the American Legion in Betterton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Now let's hear from Mr. Mason.
Thank you. I am a current county commissioner. And for those of you that may not know, I will give some of my background. After working and paying my way through college, I graduated from the University of Maryland in 1971, being selected as outstanding senior in the College of Agriculture and earning membership in Alpha Zeta, an agricultural fraternity based on grades, and Omicron Delta Kappa, a national leadership fraternity. With a college degree, $300 in my pocket, and a car, I started my career in Kent County as an ag educator with the University of Maryland Extension Service. In 1975, I married Alice Morris, a Kent County native, my wife of 47 years, and also my best friend. And we started farming on a small rental farm in Kennedyville. Not having grown up on a farm, I realized my childhood dream of having a dairy farm in 1977 at my present location on Meltota Road. With my youngest son and his family, we currently milk 750 cows, mostly registered jerseys, own 1,500 acres here in Kent County, and 3,000 acres primarily in the Midwest and the South. Alice and I have 4 successful grown children and 7 grandchildren. In 2021, we were recognized as Master Farmers in the Mid-Atlantic region for our dedication to agriculture, business, success, and leadership abilities. We also own, along with John and Nancy Nunn, and our Eve's Cheese, which is an artisan cheese company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Now, Mr. Nicholson, would like to hear from you.
Good evening. I would also like, well, I'm Albert Nicholson. I'm a candidate for county commissioner. And I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters, the other participants, and everyone who's taken the time to log on tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Kent County. I live in Steel Pine Neck with my wife, who is a 6th generation farmer in the state of Maryland. She and her family, she own and operate Grandview Farm and Langenfelder Pork. We have 2.
What do we do about this?
Construction 25 years ago.
Mhm.
And I consider myself to be able to work, live, and raise my family in Kent County, Maryland. I'd like to work in the best interest of the county and its citizens. And in doing so, helping move the county forward while respecting our heritage and our rural character. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. And finally, least but not last, Mr. Price.
Good evening. I'm a lifelong resident of Kent County. I've been married to Sharon for 40 years and have 2 daughters and 4 granddaughters. I have proudly served as the elected sheriff of Kent County for 7 terms, with a total of 43 years in local law enforcement. I am a graduate of the Eastern Shore Criminal Justice Academy and the National Sheriff's Institute, and a past president of the Maryland Sheriff's Association. As sheriff, I have worked with several boards of county commissioners, and I'm familiar with the process of county government. I have always believed that communication, accessibility, and community involvement are important in public service. I am familiar with every corner of Kent County and have established relationships with those communities. My proven leadership and experience, I believe, make me a viable candidate for county commissioner. If elected, I will keep our county safe and secure, support quality education for all students, and promote both commercial and residential growth to increase our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Now, we want to move on to our questions for the evening. The first question is about education funding. Kent County's contribution to school funding will increase under the Blueprint for America's Future Act, also known as Kerwin. How do you propose the county raise these required funds? And I'm going to let Mr. Mason answer this question first.
Hey, thank you. It's interesting, but Kerwin will dictate how much money Kent gives to its schools. And we must continue to work with our state legislators, Jay Jacobs, Steve Arntz, and Jeff Grace, to try to get the legislature to change the wealth formula so that it is not so detrimental to Kent County. We must increase the county tax base through economic development, expansion of current businesses and new businesses and new homes in the area set aside for these activities. I'm going to try and work with our new county grant writer to see if there are some programs or grants that we can tap into. Finally, if there's no recourse, we would have to raise property taxes. A requirement of say $5 million that we would have to give to Kerwin would require about a 16 cents a hundred increase. This would be very harmful to the county, especially since we have the second highest property tax rate on the shore. However, we must have quality public school to attract business and young adult families to our community. Thank you. Ms. Dollinger, you're muted. You're muted there.
Thank you, sorry. I'd like to now give Mr. Nicholson an opportunity to answer this question.
Yes, ma'am. In my opinion, the Kerwin Commission report unfairly impacts the county's funding of our schools. I will go to Annapolis to lobby for funding relief from our legislation. The past session, our 36th district delegation offered a bill to help Kent with the Kerwin mandates, but it failed to move forward. I will support similar legislation in the fight for funding and help from the state. And I also think that we should engage other counties on the shore, in particular, that are going through the same issues, so that we might, I feel as though there would be more strength if we had the other counties help support us or support each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Now, Mr. Price, would you like to respond to this question?
Absolutely. Quality education should remain a top priority for Kent County, as it is important to our students' future and for attracting new residents and businesses to the county. Even though we are small, Kent County students should not be left behind. Therefore, I support the Kerwin mandated funding and will work with school leadership to identify innovative ways to fulfill our obligation. The theory behind Kerwin is great, but how we will pay for it remains a challenge. I doubt that any candidate here has the answer at this point on how this is to be done. We could raise taxes, which is not my choice. We could grow the tax base, which doesn't happen overnight. We can seek additional funding by working with our legislators to support legislation to ease the financial burden to the county. Lastly, we might explore combining resources with a neighboring county in an effort to reduce administrative costs. We should always promote Kent County students and teachers in a positive light and ensure transparency and accountability for the investment that we put in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Fithian, give you an opportunity to respond.
Thank you. In my experience, there are only three ways in which to raise revenue. The first way is to take away from another county department. I'm not in favor of this, as I do not know of any part of the county that can bear having their current budget reduced. The second way, and easiest, is simply raise taxes. In my 24 years in office, I've only done this once, and it is not an option I support. The third way is to raise revenue and grow the economy. Growing an economy takes time, but thankfully the former Board of Commissioners, of which I was a part of, took two major steps. In 2016, we made a large investment to bring high-speed internet into Kent County. All businesses need high-speed internet, and it's also become extremely important during the pandemic for both people and children working and learning at home. In 2018, we added new language and more flexibility to our comprehensive plan, which will now allow for mixed-use development on both sides of the 301 corridor outside of Millington. In the coming weeks, you'll be hearing more about this exciting project and the positive impact it's about to have on our economy. To say I'm excited about it is quite an understatement.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. And now, Mr. Jacob, would you like to respond to this question?
Certainly. Before I propose how to raise funds to pay for Kerwin, let's talk about how much we have to raise. By the year 2034, we must add $11.7 million to the current budget. And so being a small business person, I was trying to figure out how to do this. So I was estimating we probably need to build between 500 and 750 homes at 2 people per household, paying approximately $3,000 property tax per household, which equals 1.5 million to 2.25 million to the budget plus income tax. Every household that has kids takes us in the opposite direction, though, because we currently pay about $18,000 per student in our current school system. If the budget grows, from when I was commissioner, our budget basically grows $2 million a year through inflation or whatnot. I would probably say this is what we would probably need to do to pay for the Kerwin. Yet again, it's an estimate, but I just wanted to put out there what grand scope this is. Two things need to happen in Kent County for this to happen. One, we need to develop the 301 corridor. We talked about it for over 10 years. The holdup was always the EDUs and the sewer hookups. Our biggest accomplishments over the past 4 years started a year ago when the county started to design and build a sewer plant outside of Millington, which will allow the development of the 301 corridor and bring businesses and housing. Second, we need to add workforce housing and subsidized housing to the rest of the county. The county collects taxes from people who live here or own property here. It is good to provide jobs to these people who live in Queen Anne's County or further, like my current employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. And now we will move on to the second question that you gentlemen received previously. This one regards economic development. To encourage economic development in Kent County, please identify 2 critical projects you would work on that you believe are achievable in the next 4 years. And I'd like to start with Mr. Price on this question.
Thank you. I believe we should support proposed development by fulfilling the commitment for the appropriate infrastructure on the 301 corridor sooner than later. I also recognize that there are potential zoning issues that may need to be addressed in order to lift restrictions on certain commercial businesses that would want to locate there. We need to build out the existing infrastructure in the Wharton area that will support and promote both residential and commercial growth. I will work with the Economic Development Director and staff to ensure they are equipped and understand the goals and objectives of the Board of County Commissioners to promote smart growth. We need to identify and pursue an area for affordable housing, not Section 8, but for first-time home buyers. That will support our workforce and serve our community. A place where police, fire, EMS, nurses, teachers can afford to become homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Now, Mr. Fithian, I'd like to give you an opportunity.
Thank you. And I'm gonna be a little redundant here because I'm gonna go back to what I said took place in 2016 and 18 and build upon that. I mean, I don't think anybody has to say how welcome the high-speed internet project that we put together and how it's been received throughout the county, I think is a real plus. As far as the 301 corridor, there are some major there's going to be some major things take place in the very near future, as I pointed out, that you'll be reading about soon. And they're quite exciting. That's an area that we need to continue to put funding through our Upper Shore Regional Council. Kent County just received $2.9 million. That's going to be able to, we're going to be able to take at least a portion of that and put that into the infrastructure to help move this project and other projects like it forward. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to bring good things and to the upper part of the county. It's a great place to do it. It doesn't interfere very much with the agricultural part of Kent County. It's up there on a highway that is underutilized in all honesty. It's very little traffic on that compared to other places. And within a half hour, you can be, or excuse me, an hour and a half, you can be to like 6 different cities like Annapolis, Baltimore, Washington, Middletown, Philadelphia, Newark, and places. It makes it perfect for some of the things that we have in mind that's going to take place up there. So we got to keep building on that. It was started back in 2018, and I think we've got something getting ready to take place that is a start, and we just got to keep building on it. And I think good things are yet to come. And Millington will get a good shot in the arm.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. I touched on 2 critical projects on the first question, one being the 301 corridor and the other in housing. The 301 corridor require the county to work with the town of Millington and redo some of its planning and zoning to allow growth that would be suitable for the residents of Millington and the county. The second being housing in the rest of the county. We need to encourage growth in the rest of the county and give people a reason to want to be here. I have always believed that we should work with our towns and encourage growth. We lost 1,000 people in the last census, and I'm sure that was from both the towns and the county. We currently build about 18 new homes a year, and currently the average for those homes is 2.2 people per household. So if you do the math to recoup those 1,000 people, it would take 25 years if we built at that rate. And that's something that we must do better at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Now, Mr. Mason, let's give you a chance to respond to this question.
Thank you. If reelected as a county commissioner, I will continue to promote diverse ag operations that support our rural lifestyle. I also realize that we must look at targeted business expansion, particularly in the 301 corridor, the Wharton area, and our 5 municipalities. In our last census, we lost 1,000 people, which is not sustainable for economic growth and our schools. One project I think that is sustainable in the next 4 years is progress in the 301 corridor. I believe we are close to some real business growth in this area. With continued effort by our Department of Economic and Tourism and its director, Jamie Williams, and her dedicated staff, business will come. We as a county must be willing to accept them and improve on our perception that Kent County does not welcome new business. We must have our zoning in place and be willing to give tax incentives if needed. Our next area is to promote workforce housing, especially where we have water and sewer. A great area right now is the Kennedyville Village, which the county owns and is vigorously looking for a developer to take this on. These projects will provide labor for our business and increase the county's tax base, which once again is desperately needed.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. And now, Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond?
Yes, ma'am. Let me begin with economic development is not just bringing new businesses and industry to the county. It is supporting, encouraging, and promoting existing businesses to thrive, expand in a way that achieves economic development. We have a variety of businesses here in Kent County: agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, healthcare, and more, all of which have the ability to grow with support of the county. Providing a skilled workforce is another way to encourage economic growth. Working with the public school system to provide training for a wide variety of needed job positions would attract business to the county, I think. And I also feel as though that there are some things happening up in Millington that are going to be pretty big for the county. Thank you.
Thank you all. At this time, we're going to go to some questions that have been submitted by our audience participants. And the first question that we're going to present from them is about the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. Kent County was implemental in forming the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. The county recently withdrew, agreed to rejoin, and decided to withdraw again. As a commissioner of Kent County, would you agree to rejoin the Clean Chesapeake Coalition? And on this question, we're going to give Mr. Jacob the first opportunity to respond.
Thank you very much. The Clean Chesapeake Coalition was probably started, I don't even know, 2012, 14. It was 9 different counties involved in it. About 9 different counties throughout the years. All the counties have dropped out except for 4, and then we dropped out, which took it to we dropped out. We were 5th, I think, and then there was Cecil County, Queen Anne's County, Dorchester, and Caroline, and then we dropped out of it 2 years ago, and then followed by Cecil County this past year. I read an article in the Cecil Whig just recently. I spoke with this at the county commissioner office that talked about their whole argument up there was, are they actually effective? What do they actually do? What have they actually done in the last 4 years? So without anything concrete to show that they actually make a change in anything. I mean, all these rules and laws are made by our state delegates. And if they're not changing the votes in Annapolis with the delegates who vote for these things, I'm not sure what effect they actually have. I countered the motion to lead for the Clean Chesapeake Coalition just last week with offering to seed oysters on Swan Point, which is actually something concrete that we give back to the watermen that we could see that works. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jacob. Next, I'd like to give Mr. Mason a chance to respond to this question.
Thank you. I mean, the Clean Chesapeake Coalition has become a controversial discussion. And the problem I have, I do not see anything happening. When the state allowed Exelon to not have to clean up behind the dam, which the Clean Chesapeake Coalition was supposedly lobbying to not let this happen. I mean, I'm like, why are we spending this money? Because we're not doing anything to clean up the bay. And every time they open the floodgates on the dam, we have all this debris coming down, because what's happened, and they have to open the floodgates more often because there's so much behind the dam. So I think the money, and I'll agree with Mr. Jacobs, if we could spend this money on oyster spats. I'm not a waterman, but anything that we could do to help the watermen actually improve their lives, I'm for. But I just don't feel that we're getting the bang for our buck out of continuing to fund Clean Chesapeake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, ma'am. I think that if I were a commissioner, I would fund the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. In my opinion, the Chesapeake Bay is the greatest natural resource on the East Coast. And I think that we all need to invest in cleaning it and supporting the watermen and the fishing industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Price, would you like to respond to this question?
Well, I am a very big supporter of our watermen who make their livelihoods out on the bay. I have been out in the bay and witnessed exactly what Mr. Mason was referring to with the wash machines and dead cattle sometimes floating down the bay. It was sickening. Frankly, I would have to learn more about exactly what they do and how they do it. And I would have to evaluate the costs versus the advantages. But I certainly do support a clean bay, and no one else but me really understands how important that is. I have a brother who actually works on the bay, and I certainly have done some commercial crabbing, and I understand how important clean water is.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Now, Mr. Fithian, finally, would you like to respond to this question?
Sure. You know, the idea that this is about any one issue is just not so. I mean, the Chesapeake Bay is the largest and greatest national treasure this state of Maryland has, and it's more than just the watermen. It's the marine owners, it's the tourism business, it's just the health of the Chesapeake Bay. And I mean, it's not just the Conowingo Dam. We've just heard, and there was reports put out about Back River wastewater treatment plant over in Baltimore and Patapsco River plant. And the report to come out that it's catastrophic problems over there. They use those words, catastrophic. That's about as harsh as you can get. The coalition was a group of counties put together, not to be able to pass legislation, but to, instead of one county speaking with one voice, you had as many as 5, 6, 7 counties speaking with a united voice to be the watchdog of one of our greatest estuaries in the state of Maryland, the greatest estuary. I think $17,000, which was the contribution out of a $53 million budget, is a very little price to pay to have a group of people, group of counties overseeing that great estuary. Now there's good, even a press release just recently come out that the federal government is getting ready to make the Chesapeake Bay a national park. Now, what comes with that? I'm not sure, we all know, but I read that the Clean Chesapeake Coalition was one of the groups that was working with the federal government to put this, to be a watchdog on how this proceeds. So we as county commissioners will know ahead of time whether we need to oppose something or support something. We can't be everywhere at one time. That's a very minimal amount of money.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian.
You're welcome.
I'd like to go to another question that's been submitted. This is about police accountability. Describe your plan to establish Kent County's Police Accountability Board and an administrative charging committee as required by the Maryland Police Accountability Board Act of 2021. And on this question, I'd like to give Mr. Nicholson the opportunity for the first response.
Well, this is something that I just found out about a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just starting to learn about it. First and foremost, I just want to say that I'm a strong supporter of the police, and I think they have a tough job to do, particularly in these times. And I commend the sheriff and his department and everybody else that keeps us safe in Kent County. As far as the accountability board, I think it's going to have to be, when this board is picked, it's going to have to be picked. It's going to have to take some time so that we get the right people. I think that's going to be the key. And I just hope that it doesn't hinder the policing that's taking place in Kent County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Mr. Price, would you like to comment on this question?
Absolutely. I'm actually very, very familiar with the police accountability mandated legislation that was sent to our counties. Well, really, it's a state law. I've been examining this for about the last 6 months. The county commissioners of Kent County have done a very good job. The current commissioners, we have had numerous discussions about setting up 3 different boards. That is in the process. There's, if it wasn't read today, there will be a resolution read next week. So that allows us to be able to form these boards. You know, it's the law. We have to do it. And you know, we have been working on this ever since probably before the middle of April, because we just didn't have the answers to know exactly what we were looking at. And you know, certainly we wanted to go with what the legislative intent was with the bill. And it's been a very, very gray area for a lot of police agencies to try to address this. But we have worked through it. The law actually goes into effect July 1st. The sheriff's office, under my leadership, has already addressed the policies and rules and regulations that need to be in place. And now we're just waiting on a matrix for the Maryland Police Training Commission, which has not been put out yet. But the county commissioners have also done their part as well. There's a consultant that's actually been hired, and we are making good progress with that as I speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Fithian, would you care to comment on this question?
Well, yes, this accountability board stuff, it's another mandate sent down to us, or unfunded mandate, again, from the state legislature sent down to us. Look, we have proven time and time again, year in and year out, that we support our police department. We want a good police department. We're going to continue to do what we have to do, but make no mistake about it, we're going to have good police protection in Kent County.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Mr. Jacob.
This is a pretty short and sweet answer for me. We have great police protection in Kent County. We don't have any of the issues that, thank goodness, the rest of the world and some of the other parts of the state of Maryland have. When this mandate came in from the state unfunded, we set money off to the side in our budgeting session. Our county administrator has been working diligently on it with the state's attorney and the sheriff, and we're on top of it. The last time I talked to our county administrator, we were waiting for the state to finalize what they wanted us to do, because the state put this through not knowing exactly how they wanted to do it or how they wanted to, what they wanted to look like in the end. And we're still waiting at that point for them to finalize what we're still supposed to actually do at this point. But as far as I'm concerned, our county staff is fully taking care of this, and I would like to thank them for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Mason, would you like to comment on this question?
Yes, and I don't know how much more I can add to what my colleagues have said that about the Police Accountability Board, particularly Sheriff Price, because as a sheriff, he's definitely been on top of it. And we as commissioners, I mean, we've allocated money for it. I believe there's also been an legal notice in the paper asking if anyone wants to serve on this board. Actually, it's more than one board. I believe it's two boards. And we have gotten some responses to that. It's another one of these things where the state mandates different programs to the counties, and then the county citizens have to come up with the money to pay for it, and also how to put it all together, because there really was not much direction that came from the state on how this is supposed to work. And they have a starting date of July the 1st. But the county is on top of this. We have talked about it several times, and we will be ready. And once again, I mean, I think we have a terrific sheriff's department. The deputies we're very fortunate to have the sheriff's department that we have here in Kent County. We think of a sheriff's department as they're going to stop someone speeding, but there's a whole lot more things they do when they're out helping that person that has a mental health crisis, that we need to be thankful that we have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. This next question is on a different topic. It's about health services. Will the county commissioners prioritize the return of obstetrics and pediatrics to our hospital? How will you bring these and other family health services back to Kent County? I'd like to start with Mr. Fithian on this question.
Well, thank you. We have been involved, and because I've been around for a few terms, we've been involved in trying to save our hospital. We met with a group that named themselves Save Our Hospital, and everybody was very, very concerned about that. It seemed like in the beginning that what they were going to do was try to downscale our hospital, make it a first-class emergency room. So somebody could go if they were troubled with a serious problem, you could go and get stabilized, and they send you off to some bigger hospital. But a lot of the little things that are disappearing are very troublesome. I mean, when you have, I have 3 daughters, a couple of them have had children, young children, babies, had to go clear to Annapolis or somewhere to have it. That's almost uncalled for. And we have spoken out publicly about it. We've attended meetings, we've talked about it. We've invited the CEO of University of Maryland to come and talk with us about it. Sometimes our requests go completely ignored. It's a very disturbing process, and because we're such a, you know, our seniors are the largest growing demographic of our population, and to think that our hospital is limiting services on a daily basis almost. We hear from the nurses and stuff, I do personally, how troubled they are about what's happening there. So it's a real concern that we need to stay on top of, but unfortunately our hands are somewhat tied as to what we can actually do about it, except try to make everybody aware of what's going on and to continue to beat on the hospital to try to do better. And we have been doing that religiously, believe me.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Mr. Jacob, would you like to respond to this question?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I sure can. Will the county commissioners prioritize the return of obstetrics and pediatrics to our hospital? How will you bring these and other family health services back to the county?
Well, unfortunately, the University of Maryland is a private business, and the only thing we could do is pretty much put bills in like we did before. That 3 or 4 years ago, I was part of the Save Our Hospital group when I became commissioner, and there was a number of bills that were put through our state legislative to force them to do things. We did become, this has been years since I've thought about this. We did become what's it called, a hospital in the country or something. I mean, I'm not answering this question very well, which was actually positive. But as far as commissioners and who we can meet, what we can do as a commissioner level, we're very limited. I always thought that personally, that one of the problems with our hospital, them being a business with our population, the county going down, they're a business like any other business. They're out to make money. And with the county not growing and them being they're a nonprofit, but nonprofits are for profit. They just claim profit at the end of the year. But a lot of our services were lost because our county never grew around the hospital. I think we should be very thankful that we have a hospital here, even though it has been degraded as far as it has, but we should probably still be thankful that we have something here. I brought up years ago, or a while back, not years ago, 3 years ago, that maybe we should look at getting away from University of Maryland and maybe join up with like Christiana, but that ship has sailed. I just think that we have what we have right now, and we're kind of stuck because our county can't support anything better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Mr. Mason, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, it's a difficult question, and I think we would all like to see pediatrics come back to our hospital. But as Mr. Jacobs just kind of said, I think the ship has already sailed. And unless there is some huge effort by some outside groups to try to force the hospital or to force the University of Maryland to bring this back. But I think it also gets back to our population. How many people do we actually have in Kent County that are having children? I know if you're having that child, it's very important, and you'd much rather probably have it in Chestertown than have to go across the bay to do it. But I think we need to be happy we do have what we do have. My granddaughter just had an episode where, and I maybe shouldn't say this, she ran a pitchfork through her foot. And for those of you that maybe don't know what a pitchfork is, I mean, she was out feeding her calves and something happened, and she went to the emergency room, and excellent care. I mean, she said, oh, they were the nicest people and they took care of me. And I mean, she's 7 years old. And she was just delighted that she had the excellent care that she had. And I think we should be happy with that. Not that we shouldn't strive to get more, but at least we do have that urgent care that will work with our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, ma'am. I agree with Commissioner Mason and Commissioner Jacobs. I think that we're lucky that we have what we have, and all of us would love to have more. But I think that it's going to be a little bit difficult dealing with the University of Maryland on this issue. I mean, I'm willing to do whatever it is that we can do to try to help, but I just don't know whether the University of Maryland is going to listen to us, since our population base is what it is. We'd all love to see kids born in Kent County again. Heck, that's where I was born. That's where my boys were born. And hopefully someday we can get that back. But I'm afraid unless we, like Commissioner Mason says, enlist the help of some outside entities. I just don't know whether or not we'll see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. And Mr. Price, would you like to respond to this question?
Well, first off, on the heels of our COVID this year, those healthcare workers working at that hospital did a tremendous job during that 2-year period, and is still doing a tremendous job for the county. As far as pediatric care, the only thing that I would try to do is maybe engage in a conversation with the leadership of the hospital, obviously the University of Maryland, and try to have conversations about what we could do to strengthen the level of service that we could maybe bring back to Kent County. It's a tough question to try to answer because your hands are kind of tied. I mean, it's run by an outside group, and it's going to be very, very tough to bring back those special services that we once had here when I was growing up here as a kid.
Thank you, Mr. Price. The next question that we have is regarding taxes and the tax differential in Kent County. Residents of Chestertown pay both town and county taxes for services, but the county does not contribute to road maintenance or public safety within the incorporated areas. This only occurs in 2 other counties in Maryland. In all others, the county contributes to the incorporated area costs, provides the services, or residents are given a rebate on taxes. Do you believe this is an appropriate taxing strategy, or if not, how would you resolve the issue? And I'm going to go back on this question to Mr. Mason, and as the first opportunity to respond.
Okay, ever since I've been a commissioner, this has been a topic of discussion. And I am of the opinion now that perhaps we need to have a third party come in and look at it and just see how much money is spent by the county in our municipalities. There are many things that if you live in a municipality, you still go to the schools. 38% of our budget is the schools. Mention the roads. The town of Chestertown gets and this is approximately $11,000 a mile from the state for the roads that they have. The county gets $1,920. So they certainly have money for their roads. And maybe Mr. Price will address this. The Sheriff's Department, I know, works very closely with the Chestertown Police. And if there's an occasion where they need help, then the county Sheriff's Department will assist them. Washington College, the Chestertown Police provide services to Washington College. I think there should be something in their budget from Washington College, and this could be on an activity fee, say $100 on the activity fee that the students pay that would go to the town of Chestertown, and this would help cover some of their expenses with the police. But in short, I do believe we need to sit down, the town, the county, have an open mind, and who knows, maybe the municipalities will owe the county money. I don't know until we sit down and look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, ma'am. I guess I would be willing to consider tax rebates to the municipalities in instances where the residents are being taxed by both the county and the town for services that are being provided by their local municipality. However, for those services which the county provides to the town residents, it seems appropriate for the county taxes to be paid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Mr. Price, would you like to respond to this question?
So I've had numerous conversations with Mayor Foster from Chestertown, and we've talked about this in great length. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I told him, that if elected county commissioner, I am committed to having a conversation, an honest conversation. You know, I am very familiar, like Mr. Mason was referring to, about the level of law enforcement services that Kent County provides to the citizens of Chestertown. I'm also very familiar with the EMS folks that provide services as well as many other areas. But I also believe that there's a way to maybe share resources, like when it comes to working on roads and so forth. You know, the county has a large, adequate roads department. And I truly believe that there's a way that if we have a friendly, open relationship with other governments throughout the county, other municipalities, that we can work together. And it would probably save them money and potentially even save the county money down the road. But basically, the short answer is I am certainly open to a honest conversation. And if elected, I look forward to having that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Fithian, would you like to respond to this question?
Yeah, well, I'm on record as saying that I don't think that a tax differential is necessary. I think the list of services that the county provides free of charge to the town of Chestertown and all of the municipalities is a list too large to even mention. We put as I think Sheriff Price just pointed out with our EMS, we spend $1.5 million in paramedics, EMTs, driving the ambulances, working day and night to provide service to the people. And Chestertown is 25% of the population. We serve those people along with the rescue squad. And those tax, let me explain something. Those tax, the counties that apply, that get credit for tax differentials, it depends on the way it's worded. Some counties will, let's take the fire companies, for example. The county gives probably $1 million, something over $1 million, $1.25 million to each fire company that, especially if they have the ambulance service, on a yearly basis. Now, some counties will give that money directly to the town and let the town send it to the fire department. They get credit for a tax differential because they're giving the money to the town. We don't do that. We send it directly to where it needs to go, which is to the fire companies, and we don't get credit for it. The hotel tax, some counties, they keep all of that money from the hotel tax and they use it for advertisement to bring in people into the county. We don't do that. We give every municipality their share of the hotel tax based on if the people stayed within their boundaries of their town and in their hotels and motels. So, you know, we could have a discussion. There's no, I'll discuss anything, but I'm going to tell you a list of things. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Mr. Jacob, would you like to respond to this question?
Sure. So the tax differential, I've always agreed that we should give a tax differential to the town of Chestertown. A lot of the conversations happened previously saying every county in the state of Maryland does the math differently. And there's probably a lot of counties out there that get credit for a differential, but they're really not giving as much as we do. So I don't disagree with a lot of the comments made by the other commissioners and people running, but but 80% of our businesses are within the town of Chestertown, and a lot of our tax dollars come from the town of Chestertown. Now, I've spoken with Mayor Foster. I've spoken with some of the other members of the town council, and what they think the number should be and what I think the number should be is completely different. I believe we do owe them some money, but I don't believe it's as much as they say, because we've never sat down with a third party and determined the actual number. But I do believe it exists. Even if we did determine what the number it is, the county couldn't afford it. We had the budget session this time around was probably was the roughest that I went through, and the county just doesn't have the reoccurring money to give these towns for the tax differential. We did get $70,000 worth of tax differential last year, but because of our tight budget this year, there just wasn't an opportunity to bring that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Let's switch over to category of housing, affordable housing. On this question, how would you encourage developers to build affordable housing for young families or for all families that are in need of more affordable housing? I'm going to start this question with Mr. Price.
Affordable housing is something that the county desperately needs. And it's got to be in the right area in the county, preferably close to our incorporated towns. You know, currently the inflation and the interest rates are so high, it's almost undoable for a young family to even be able to afford to either build a home, let alone make the mortgage payment. And until we get some relief there, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I do believe that we will see some relief down the road, but it's going to take probably a year or two for that to happen. And once that happens, I think that more folks will be able to afford and have an opportunity to build that home or their dreams. But currently, it's a struggle, and I don't have the answers for that.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Fithian, would you like to respond to this question?
Well, I think I'm sort of like the sheriff. I'm not sure that I have the ingredients to figure out how to bring affordable housing to Kent County. Obviously, one of the things is that you got to, what brings young people to Kent County are simply jobs. And until we start, and I know everybody's hiring, but you got to be able to get a job that you can afford to buy a house, pay the mortgage, and support a family. So hopefully something will happen up there, as I've pointed out, in the 301 corridor. We'll see. But I can tell you this: my wife's in the real estate business, and every day she comes home and tells me that she's got one more name on the list of someone that needs a place to rent or to live. And she said it's really some sad stories out there, because it's becoming harder and harder, especially because the real estate business have been good and for the last year or so, and people have been coming in from the outside of the county buying up the properties, and unfortunately some of them were being rented to some of the local people, and now they're scrambling around. They've been given a certain amount of time to get out of the house because it's going to be sold, and everybody's scrambling now to find a place to live, and it's really becoming a serious problem. And mostly what I found is when a problem gets bad, some private group will come in and maybe build some new apartments or something, hopefully, but there's certainly a need. I don't have the answer, just like the sheriff. I do know one thing. We got to try to keep the tax rate down and do everything we can to make it affordable to live here. But it's certainly necessary. It's a real need.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. Mr. Jacob, would you like to respond to this question?
Affordable housing is really tough in Kent County. It's, affordable renting is very tough in Kent County, because a lot of people are selling their renters houses. I own several rental houses, and I've recently sold them because it just wasn't worth it to me anymore at this point. So when I was on the economic board, I think it was before I was commissioner, about 5 years ago, we talked about affordable housing on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And that was probably one of the toughest businesses there was to be in to build a mid-level house. So one of the loan officers from one of the banks in Kent County was on the economic board, and he was telling us a story where people were buying property, coming to the bank with plans and quotes from builders to build a house, but what they brought them what wouldn't appraise to the value of what their new house was be, and that was how the market was. Thankfully, in the last couple of years, that's actually turned around a little bit. So hopefully, you can get a loan for what the house is worth. But and I will say one other thing. When I always say we, basically I'm talking about us three commissioners. So I don't know if anybody remembers, but the first year when we were in office 3 years ago, we passed a sprinkler tax credit because the adding sprinkler, I can't remember what it was, like $7,000 or $3,000. We gave credit to housing to try to generate building houses that were economical for workforce housing in the Kent County. And we passed the house credit where I think it was like $3,000 credit was paid, like $2,000 the first, $1,500, then $1,000 to $500 to help generate growth within the county. And that housing credit that we passed to help pay for the new sprinkler systems is still in enforcement. So just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Mr. Mason, would you like to respond?
Yes, and this is what happens when you're fourth in the discussion, because I was going to mention the sprinkler system and a colleague beat me to it. But yeah, I mean, right now, housing's a difficult thing, not only from what the county, but with housing prices have gone up. And now with the interest rates going up, we're just forcing people out of the market. The people that, I'm going to say the people that don't have the money. I mean, there's people with money that they can still afford to buy a house. The other thing we have done, there was a house built in Butlertown that we as commissioners, and I believe it was through Kent Attainable Housing, that we waived the water and sewer allocation fee. And this was a house that was then eventually sold to a low-income family. But we looked at it as they're now paying a water and sewer bill, and they're going to be paying property taxes. But this got a home that, I mean, it cost us some money initially, it cost the county some money, but we felt that it will come back to us. And I don't have a problem doing that type of thing. And I believe I believe some of that, I believe there's some more homes that group is trying to build, but it's a challenge with workforce housing. It just is. And I certainly don't have all the answers for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, ma'am. And this is what happens when you go last. Mr. Mason stole my thunder with the town water and sewer allocation. I'm in agreement with him and obviously the other commissioners. I was thinking the same thing. Quite possibly we could give away or at a reduced rate the hookup fees or the hookups, because then they'll be paying the town water and sewer quarterly. And something, I am a contractor. I don't build many houses, but I think all of us here tonight know what the cost of materials have done, and who knows when that's going to come back to levels in pre-COVID. I don't think any of us can predict if they will even come back to that. I've been asked this question several times since people found out that I'm running, and it's tough. It's real tough because of the cost to build a house right now. So I don't have the answers other than maybe try to get creative like the commissioners have and give some credits to the first time or new home buyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. I think we have time for one more question before we do closing remarks. I'm going to move back to the area of education. This one's a more specific question. Would you support construction of a new middle school building in Kent County? And I'm going to give Mr. Jacob the opportunity to respond to this question first.
Thank you very much. So I don't even remember all the dates, but the middle school in Chestertown's been there for a long time. And it's old school, it's got an old foundation, you know, and we're talking about building a new school that is for the next 50 years. I mean, we're not talking about 20 years, we're talking about building something for the next 50 years. And even though a lot of people out there aren't happy with our current school staff, that shouldn't have anything to do with it, because we're building it for the next 50 years. I also believe there's a conversationally whether should it go in Chestertown next to the old one or back to Wharton Park. Well, back in probably the 60s or 70s, everybody wanted to build a Wharton Park campus. And that's why we have a lot of things out at Wharton. And I always lean toward having a campus in Wharton Park. We have the community center, we have the high school, and if we had a middle school out there, you know, a lot of parents that don't get off 5, you know, the kids can go hang out at the community center until the parents get off. So you almost have like free babysitting out there. I also agree with putting the 5th graders back in the middle school, because that's how it always was when I was in school. So I don't see why we wouldn't do that. I am against putting 8th grade in the high school, because I think the 8th and the 9th, there's just too much disparity. You're never going to keep 8th graders away from 12th graders, because if I was a senior, I always knew where the young girls were out in the school. You couldn't keep me away from them. So I just don't think that's going to happen. And that's not a great idea either. But to sum this up, I am for a new middle school. I would like to see a school in Wharton. I would like to see it 5th through 8th grade. And I think we should build a fabulous school for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Mr. Mason, would you like to respond to this question?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that we need to do something with our middle school. The school has a lot of problems because it's old, you know, infrastructure only lasts so long. So we're either going to have to make major improvements there, or we're going to have to build a new school. And I think some of this gets down to is what the state is going to support us doing. One of the problems we have an underutilized school system at this time. There's a lot of space in our high school. And one of the things I understand the state will look at is, well, you have underused space, so why do you want to build a new school? Now, I don't follow that discussion entirely, because if your old school's falling apart, you have to do something. And there's really, we don't want to put them all out at the high school as one group. So yes, I think, but it's still out. They're still looking at estimates and costs, but here again, that's going to come down to what the state's going to support us in doing. Because say if you have $100 million new school, where's Kent County getting that money? I mean, we're going to mortgage the future of every child that goes through that middle school. They'll still be paying for it when their children are going through middle school. So yes, we need to do something, but I think we have to look at it very creatively and be wise in what we do.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Nicholson, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, ma'am. I guess I'll start by saying everybody here, I'm sure, thinks that their kids are our greatest investment. And we're willing to spend whatever it takes to give them a better future. I just think that we need to look at the dollars and cents, and if doing some remodeling at the existing middle school is the proper thing to do, comparing apples to apples, I think maybe that's something we need to look into. I think that saddling, like Mr. Mason said, our kids with debt for the rest of their lives to have to pay for this is going to be tough for me to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Mr. Price, would you like to respond to this question?
Sure. I've had actual conversations with our superintendent. I understand there's a lot of infrastructure issues with the current middle school. I've also spoken to a lot of citizens around the county, and especially in the Chestertown area, who believe that the middle school should remain on Campus Avenue. I've also heard from other people that they think it would be nice to have it out at Wharton, where the bus depot is next to the community center. But without knowing exactly what the cost is related to remodeling, taking care of the infrastructure issues versus the price tag I was given was around $80 million for a new middle school. And I agree with, I think it was Mr. Mason or Mr. Nicholson, that where are we going to get that kind of money and be able to make those kind of payments? I mean, it's going to be a problem. So I would like to see what it would cost to actually fix and remodel the current school, as opposed to what it's going to cost to build a new facility. You're muted again.
You're
Thank
muted.
you. Sorry.
Me to do this.
our-
Start it.
I'm sorry, our on-screen timer has decided to go home. So we are going to have to do this manually, and I will tell you when you have 15 seconds left to respond. Now, the next, I think the last person on this list for this question is Mr. Fithian.
Yes. Look, I don't think anybody, we all would love our children to go into brand new schools and have the best of everything. This is what makes that Kerwin bill so detrimental to Kent County. If you take talking about building a new school, which we would all love to see, but the estimates are 80 to 70 to $100 million, of which we would be stuck. We would pay half, and the county and the state pays half. So you're looking at a 35 to $40 million debt for Kent County, on top of the Kerwin bill that's going to come in, as I think was Bobby pointed out, was supposed to be $11 million added to it all at the same time. So where you're going to get the money to pay for this project is the real question. And there is an issue with this underutilized high school that was built for 1,500 students, and it's now got less than 600. And the state has made it very clear that they're going to look hard at that underutilized space. Now, I'm not for mixing the young kids with the older kids, but certainly we got sense enough to be able to divide sections of it off to where there would be no interaction. But we've got to figure out a way to make use of that underutilized space, or the state is not going to pay half of whatever we want to do, whether it's new repairs or new school. But there's too many unanswered questions yet for me as a commissioner to say yay or nay, or I'm not at that point yet. Too many unanswered questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fithian. And at this time, we are going to go on to our closing remarks. And once again, you have 2 minutes, and I will hold up a card that tells you when you have 15 seconds left, since our timer is not working right now. So for closing remarks, I would like to give Mr. Price the opportunity to respond first.
All right. Well, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event tonight to help educate the voters of Kent County. And I appreciate the honest, fair conversations that we've all had here tonight between the candidates. In closing, if given the opportunity to serve as one of the next Kent County commissioners, I will work to assure the safety of our county by supporting quality law enforcement and fire and EMS services. I will also strive to promote quality education for our students and fair compensation for our teachers and support staff, while demanding accountability, not micromanagement, but accountability for our investment. I believe smart economic growth with the appropriate infrastructure will be critical to the future of the county, and we should look for opportunities to expand the tax base through residential and commercial development in designated areas such as Wharton and the 301 corridor. As always, I will be accessible and responsive. I pledge to be a good listener and use sound judgment in making decisions that are not self-serving, but are in the best interest of all citizens of Kent County. Tonight, I'm asking you for your vote. I am the last candidate alphabetically on the ballot under the commissioners, but I would like to be your first choice for county commissioner. And thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Price. I see our timer has decided to wake up again. So if it remains, then you can still look at the screen to know what your time remaining is. And our next closing remarks are offered for Mr. Nicholson.
I'd like to thank everybody again and thank the commissioners and Sheriff Price for the conversation tonight. It's been a pleasure. In closing, I just want to say, I believe in Kent County. I believe in its history and its roots. I also believe in its future. I believe in its citizens, the teachers, our children, those in the healthcare, the police, the farmers, the truckers, the builders, the manufacturers, and our first responders, and the volunteers and everyone in between. I believe in the county's natural resources, the Chesapeake Bay, the woodland, the farm fields, and the wildlife. I believe we need to respect who we are as a county and what we have as a county, and move forward with keeping our rural character on the forefront. And we have to continue to address issues so that our future is prosperous for our children and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Mr. Mason.
Yes, thank you. And I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum and the other members that have been in this forum for the cordial togetherness we have had. I've enjoyed the past 3.5 years as president of the King County Commissioners and the pleasure of working with the Commissioner's office staff, the county department heads, and county employees. It has also been a pleasure to work with all the outside organizations that give to Kent. Giving back to a community I love and support has been a great reward. After dealing with a pandemic and still helping citizens in our community, I am looking forward with your support of continuing to make Kent County the best place to live and work. I spearheaded lowering the property tax, which has put about $650,000 back into the pockets of Kent County citizens over the past 2 years, while maintaining funding for our schools, for public safety, expanding EMT services, agreeing to build a new public safety complex for our sheriff's department and EMT personnel, maintaining our county roads, supporting programs in parks and recreation, and supporting major improvements at our Ag Center, and working closely with Bill Mackey and his capable planning staff on rezoning and addressing regulations that are difficult for our citizens, while striving to bring new business to the county, especially in the 301 corridor. I ask for your support as the only farmer on the candidates, and will continue to use my business experience to help our community and make Kent County better for future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone here who is participating, listening, and My remarks are summed up pretty simple. We need to improve our tax base through the 301 corridor we started last year, and we must find a way to generate more housing to the poor and workforce housing. We already do a great job creating jobs. We have more people commute into the county than leave the county. We also created an enterprise zone in Rock Hall on October 5th, 2021, and raised homeowner tax credits for the poor that are over 60 years old from $25,000 to $35,000. I'm going to mention schools. When families look to buy homes here, they look at the test scores. It's a fact. My son went to Kent County High School and now is doing well at Drexel studying engineering. So it's not all doom and gloom in our high school. And several of his friends are doing well in college also. But our schools really do need to improve. Being in business for over 20 years allows me to think from a business standpoint, which gives me great advantage in being a commissioner. Again, I would just like to thank everybody who's here.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. And finally, last but not least, Mr. Fithian.
Thank you. And thank you to all that participated tonight. It's been a real pleasure to join my colleagues or the candidates, and I hope the public got some good out of listening to us tonight. But, you know, I've been a county commissioner, as I said in my opening statement. I've been a county commissioner of this county a third of my life. It's 24 years. And I'm very proud of what we were able to do in those 24 years. I've tried to be fair. I don't represent any one group. I represent every aspect of the county to the best of my ability. I will continue to do that. I've got a list of projects that I've been involved in, too numerous to mention, but it's been a real pleasure, and I hope to continue doing that for the next 4 years. And thank you very much for having me.
And thank you to all of the candidates. I want to congratulate all of the candidates for a great forum, and to our audience for their active participation. Good evening, and don't forget to vote on July 19th. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you.